So how many times have you violated your own boundaries in order to kind of serve somebody else, in order to make that other person happy? So I think in many ways this is quite a big problem for a lot of people, and it's something that I've suffered with for most of my life, to the point where I've really not just sacrifice my boundaries or push back my boundaries, but completely sacrifice my own needs for the sake of somebody else. And so I had a little experience at work today, and I've had this experience quite a few times, but for some reason today it really stood out. And I, where I stated my need actually to my boss, and he had asked me obviously beforehand to if I could stay in, or that he may need me to stay in for a longer period of time. And so my immediate response was, look, obviously he didn't know what I had planned for that day, which is fine. And my immediate response was, look, unfortunately today I can't stay on because I have a client whom I need to treat. And so his response was a little off to that. Obviously he was under stress and he would have liked me to stay for longer. So I, in a sense, felt a bit frustrated by that, because I don't like to be responded to like that, in a sense, and I felt offended, a little offended by his response, simply because I've been so obliging before, and I normally always do what I'm required to do. So that offended me in a way. And I do have a tendency to be particularly oversensitive to these situations. So his response, I believe, was more in response to being under stress and needing to get work done, and not necessarily a personal attack on myself. So I kind of expect have expected and do expect to be attacked in this way a lot because of my past, which I won't go into now. But anyway, I mean, that was, so I in a sense I was kind of a little bit offended by this. So I went back to work, and I wanted to. It was getting, I got to a later point in my time at work, and it was getting later and later, and it got to the time I was supposed to leave, and almost felt obliged to stay on, So I stayed on for a bit against my own sort of my own need to actually go out and do what I needed to do, or actually get away from work on time, in order to complete some tasks and so on and so forth. And so I stayed for a quarter of an hour longer, and whilst I didn't completely violate those boundaries, because I knew in a sense I couldn't, because I had a client who was relying on me to get back for a treatment for her, I still put myself at a disadvantage, because when I came back from work I was having to rush around, sort things out. There were other things that I had to do today. It's a particularly busy day, so I really couldn't afford to waste or to spend any time in work, any more time in work. I had to be at home and doing my treatment, and obviously doing all the other things that I needed to do. So I'd really although I'd kind of stated my need, I'd still violated my own boundaries, in a sense, with regard to just staying on that little bit longer. And I guess in a way, in some respects, I kind of changed the pattern, because I hadn't gone totally against what I needed to do, but I hadn't, at least in part, gone against what I needed to do, because I believed that person would get unnecessarily frustrated with me, and it's something that I don't. That's something that I don't like. I don't like to be treated badly, and one of my coping mechanisms is to just basically do what's asked of me, regardless of whether I have the time to do it or not. But I mean, the event turned out well in the end. My boss wasn't too upset about what I had to do in the end, and he quickly got used to it. So I guess in a way, what I'm trying to say here is sometimes you can reach a middle ground, but it doesn't really do any good to feel guilty about the situation in hand. It doesn't really do any good to kind of violate your own boundaries. In a sense, you have to kind of stick to your guns, and that can take time, and it can take a lot of mental restructuring and emotional restructuring. And the point maybe is here to not give yourself such a hard time, and to recognize that you've recognized the pattern, but also to keep reinstating those boundaries. And once you do this and you start to reinstate the boundaries, it begins to then modify that pattern. You start to dig like a channel for water to go through, and naturally the water is going to go through that channel easier than it would have done if there was no channel. The water wouldn't go anywhere really. So you have an old channel, and that channel is well established, and the water is flowing through that channel. It doesn't take a lot to go through the channel, in a sense. It's a well established pattern. It's easy to do. So when you're trying to establish a new pattern, you have to dig a channel for that one. And when you continue to put water through the new channel, that channel will get bigger. It will get more established. The old channel will deteriorate, and rocks will fall into it, and mud and crap, and eventually it will be filled in, and you'll never be able to. You won't be able to reestablish that pattern anymore, because the new pattern will have taken over. So it's kind of an interesting way to look at it, I think. It's an interesting way to look at it. So that's kind of my video for today. And I hope that you've kind of gained some value from that. And I guess that's all I got to say, really. I hope that it's helped in some way. So take it easy, guys, and I'll speak to you very soon.